Welcome back. We are Nagarjuna investigators. This is March 19, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Deep down, we know this is what we're meant to do, to be. And learning more and more about karma and emptiness, what's meant by that, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing, into an intention, even into a deep termination. Then turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet. Become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. Teach me that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers, the great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing in this investigation and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing in this investigation and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing in this investigation and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. All right then. Let's make us bigger. Okay, Elsie's at the top of my screen yet again. You know what to do.
Thank you, Dharma. Opening. Here I have made a song for you on the very root of the middle way, which I call wisdom. In the language of India, this text is called Prashna Nama Mula Madhyamaka Karika. In the language of Tibet, it is known as Oma Sewe Shikloshe Bashara. In English, we call it wisdom, a song on the root of the middle way. I bow down to Manjushri, the glorious gentle voice in his skies, and my teens to him spot.
You, Aline, 1.1, please.
Sure, teacher. I bow down to that highest of teachers, to the fully enlightened one, who teaches us how to reach that peace where our fantasies about how things exist are put to a final rest.
Thank you. Janet, 1.2, please.
I bow to the one who taught us that things happen in dependence. Nothing ends and nothing begins, nothing stops, but nothing ever lasts forever, nothing comes and nothing goes. No two things are different, nor are any two the same.
Thank you. And Joanna, 1.3.
Thank you. Nothing grows from itself, nothing grows from something else, nothing grows from both, and nothing grows without a cause. There is nothing at all that grows at all.
What? Not at all, at all?
They come from our past deeds. They don't come from themselves.
Right.
But he's going to debate that someday.
Yes. How does that possibly work? That there can be a seed that's a karmic seed that some mental image can come out of that's always pleasant from a kindness seed and always suffering from an unkindness seed. And then, in fact, even the pleasant seeds are really suffering. Like, come on. How does that really work? If I'm a me full of karmic seeds that determine what my experience is going to be. Like, if he's going to negate that, where are we, what are we going to land on? Fortunately, he doesn't debate that early on. Yes, Janet.
I've been watching Disney Plus instead of studying, and I've been watching
Good for
Moon
you.
Knight. And Moon Knight is Egyptian superheroes of all things. And the superhero has dual identity disorder or multiple identity disorder. And so if you have two people, you have polar, right? And even male,
Yeah.
female, polar. And they call that duality. And I guess I went bowling last week after this. I'm gonna go today. I take the ladies Wednesday, and my coworker goes with me, but she doesn't get paid. She just goes to talk shit with me. I know I have a potty mouth. I'm sorry. and and so she's a Gemini. And she also has two people that are talking. And then the lines to the movie, that pen is in there. So the psychiatrist that's the movie that Tim said that the pen is. So Ethan Hawke used to be married to Uma Thurman, who is the daughter of Robert Thurman. And so these people have been exposed to Michael Roach, and his line made it into Disney Plus. It's in Moon Knight, episode 4, 11 minutes before the end, the first season. But going back to duality, so Twashina, she's Gemini and she's talking about stuff. And I often have to ask her, who's talking? Is it Sheena or Tushina? So the very first line, not the first one, but that one that I read, that nothing happens,
Yeah.
nothing happens in dependence and nothing happens on its own or whatever. It's no two things are different, nor are any two things the same.
Right.
So that line is about omniscience. So if you have duality, you see two sides of things and they go back and forth. You see us being cold and us being warm. You see us, being married and then being widowed, whatever. You see the two sides of things. But the negation of that is omniscience. So if we were omniscient and we saw these cycles and we saw how things were interrelated, we wouldn't see the duality that way anymore. And I guess this is all the more reason to wish for omniscience. So we can stop
Right.
doing that we're
Yeah.
doing.
So if we stop seeing duality, does that mean we just all become one big piece of chewing gum?
It means we're not lying to ourselves anymore. I mean, the duality is true.
Yes.
This dual identity that we have
Yes.
of positive and negative, or two beings, and the
Yeah.
Gemini side of us is valid, but it is not the only piece. There are other things going on which we choose
Yeah.
not to talk about or disregard because we say we don't see it. So it's almost like we're just accepting our ignorance.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't see how you can accept something if you don't know about it. So then,
Right.
then we're in ignorance.
Right. Yeah.
So that nothing grows from itself or for something else or from both or without a cause, I guess is asking us to look a little bit deeper at the situation, which I guess is technically an analysis. But you know, I guess most of us, when we're meditating, we don't know what we're supposed to be looking at. And it's not like we have Manjushri talking to us right now. So what do we do?
Yeah, we're learning. So that's a nice lead into class. Chapter 7 was the investigation of functioning things, produced things. And, you know, when I say those words, produced things, it seems like I'm talking about pens and cars and etc. But produced thing, changing thing, functioning thing, anything that starts, stays, and stops, meaning changes in such a way that it wasn't there and now it's there. It stays being there and then it stops being there. Or anything that's not doing something that then starts doing something has brought something else into being and it stays with that thing in being and then it eventually ends. So technically, when Nagarjuna goes into produced thing, he did so in response to chapter 6, who that had said the desire and the desirer, the wanting and liking. And we got there because in chapter 6, wait, no, do I have that right? That I'm confusing myself. We had gone through this sequence where we had gotten to where the desiring something, Nagarjuna had said, look, you know, those have no natures. And we go, no, I do so have my nature, right? Because I do things. We keep coming back to that. I do things, so I must be real. I do things, so I must be me doing things. And every time we follow Nagarjuna's arguments, okay, and then the conclusion has to be, okay, there's no nature of whatever it is we were investigating. This part of our mind we're calling Kachik flops over into, well, if it has no nature, then it can't be. And of course, it's absurd for us to say functioning things can't be, they can't exist at all. And yet, Nagarjuna is, I think, helping us recognize that there really is a part of us that thinks, by way of hearing the words, because of our misunderstanding ourselves and our world, we automatically flop over into, well, if it isn't the way I think it is, it must be that it's not at all. And of course we can't land there and stay because things are here, right? I am here. So we pop back into, no, they have to be the way they appear. And our Kachik comes up with all these different reasons trying to cling to our ordinary belief, our familiar belief, because we don't know the beauty of being in middle way. We've only ever known these two sides, apparently. And so the middle way is scary because it's an unknown. And yet, as we learn and glimpse the middle way, it's like we have the seeds to go, wow, that would be so beautiful to be able to live in that place of being aware of the duality and where it comes from as we're in it. And so knowing that it's not a duality from its own side, right? It's a duality that I am, right? And then we use it. And the omniscience does come as this experiencing everything directly. And so therefore knowing what needs to be taken up and what needs to be given up. And anyway, okay, so chapter 7, our Kachik had like doubled down on I the desirer, desiring, chapter 6, does so exist because I do stuff. We keep coming back to I do stuff. And me being someone who does stuff means I'm a functioning thing. I'm a produced thing. I produce other things. And that's everybody's experience, isn't it? Like what it is to be doing. Even when we're laying on our bed doing nothing, we're doing something. We're laying on our bed doing nothing. It's so, come on, Arya Nagarjuna. You cannot say that I don't exist. You cannot say that my desire for things does not exist. Is Nagarjuna saying things don't exist? No.
It's one of the two extremes.
Exactly. He's trying his best to get us to get into that middle way long enough to see the amazement of it, the beauty of it. And then they say, when you get into that beauty of it, it will be compassion. Interesting. It will be love. So when we get into that middle way, it's not that everything becomes one. Non-duality does not mean everything becomes one. Because if everything's one, who would there be to love? Right? We'd all be one. So it's not that. Non-duality is maybe something that he's going to address as well. I hope there's a chapter on non-duality. We'll see. So where am I going with that? I was, reviewing our notes, reviewing Lama Christie's classes, reviewing, and she was pointing out that investigation of functioning things by way of looking for their qualities of starting, staying, and stopping was meant to apply to our me. We're still in the me and my parts. We're still looking at the my parts part of dependent origination. And so one of my parts is my function. My functioning is considered one of me, part of me and my parts. So when we were saying, I do so exist as a desire or desiring, he goes, okay, let's look at this part that you're saying does so exist in it, from it, implied. Because we're saying, I do so exist because I desire. That's functioning. That's doing something. Can we find the place where it starts? No. Can we find the place where it stays? No. Can we find the place where it stops? No. But does my desire, me desiring triple berry pie, start, stay, and stop? Yes. So we go through the argument. Okay. and come to that conclusion. Okay, I see the absurdity of saying my function has a start. What do you think comes next? What does Kachik say next? Well, if I'm not doing all of that stuff, if doing it doesn't make me up, what the heck am I? Like our Kachik is still gonna say, I do things. Like we won't give up. Mm. The Lobsang Chuki Gelson's commentary pointed out that Kachik is not just stubbornly clinging to their original idea. They come back by saying, look, Lord Buddha taught that people collect karma, and karma makes things happen. And that is our experience. And so the person that makes the karma, that makes things function, has to exist, because it takes a person to make the karma, and it takes the karma to make things function. So they're saying, okay, we agree that the functioning doesn't have its own nature, that it comes from karma. But we don't agree that that means the person comes from karma too, because Buddha said it takes the person to make the karma. I like my Kachik resonates with that. Yeah. I agree with that. The person's got to be there first to make the karma, to make the key turn on the car. All right, Arya Nagarjuna, I will agree. The key turning on the car is karma. Not the key, but my karma for the key. But me has to be independent of that for me to make the karma to make the key. Right, do you see? So chapter 8 is going to investigate doers and deeds, Lama Christie called it. Okay, let's go looking for the one who makes the karma. And his first verse or two lays out his argument, and then the rest of the verses of chapter 8, show the details of the argument. So can you sense your state of mind that we're checking for the me that makes karma? It feels pretty strong to me. I've got a me that makes karma. Like that's what the whole path is about. Let's make different karma, better karma. Let's make merit instead of karma. And I think Nagarjuna's point is if I'm thinking of that me in the wrong way, even as I'm making my karma, I'm never going to stop making karma that perpetuates the mistake. And Lama Christie pointed out that when the Kachik says, I do so make karma because Buddha said beings create karma, collect karma, and karma makes things happen. So there must be the being to do it. She points out that in that argument is that beings are making karma which perpetuates the mental afflictions that propel the karma that perpetuates suffering. So in clinging to this argument, Buddha taught there's people that make karma. We're in fact showing our own mind that we're clinging to creating and recreating a suffering world. And it's like Nagarjuna sees that if we would just like let go of that clinging, we could see that the growing understanding will show us that we don't want to cling to that idea that there's a me that makes karma. Because clinging to that idea is like clinging to our suffering. We have a hammer, we're pounding our toe, and we're whining. Why does my toe hurt? Can't you make my toe stop hurting? All the while that we're pounding it with the hammer, and all we need to do is put the hammer down. So chapter 8 is his effort to help us look into this me that we're clinging to so strongly. Me, the doer of the deed. You got it? So let's see what he has to say. Can I get this without losing it? There we go. 8.1. Roxana, I think we're at you, are we?
Yes, Sri Lama, thank you. Something becoming an agent does not imply that something becomes an action. Then again, neither can something which is not an agent perform something which is not an action. Isn't it that about our tendencies to react into the imprints that we receive and that we react immediately without even being aware sometimes?
Yes. Let me read you Lama Christie's translation.
Yes.
I'm
thank you.
not comparing the two. I want to add, right, to this. The one who is really a doer could never do that which is really a deed. And one who is really a non-doer could never do that which is not a deed. Right? So saying the same thing as these two verses. So agent means doer. Action means deed. Something becoming an agent, becoming a doer of a deed, does not imply that something becomes an action. So Lama Christie used the word really, meaning something that a doer, an agent who is that agent in them. And the action, the deed, is that deed in and of itself. So choose any deed that you do and look at the deed. It could be turning the key to start the car. And to be really a deed, it would mean that that turning the key to start the car has something in that process that makes the car start or makes us get to the grocery store. So we're familiar with that sequence. If there was nothing in the key, why would we ever stick it in the ignition and turn it? If there's something in the key, you would always need the key to start the car. Wait, that's true. But then that turning the key would always start the car. But wait, the key is in my purse right now. The key doesn't change, does it? When I stick it in the ignition. It's the same key that's in my purse. But suddenly, if I turn it a certain way, the car will start. But I can hold that key and turn it, and the car doesn't start. Oh, it has to be in the ignition. Okay, so now there's something about the key in the ignition being the deed, something in it. Yeah. So the being the doer of the deed, he's gonna look at you know at what point in time or at what place in space do I go from a not key turner starting the car to a key turner starting the car? If I'm already a key turner starting the car, then then why isn't the car starting all the time? Because I'm already a key turner starting the car. What, like, why do I have to actually do anything? I can't be really a doer of the deed. We don't say I'm a key turner starter of the car until I'm doing it, right? But then that means the doing it defines me as the key starter of the car. So until I do it, I'm not that doer. So there must be something in the doing of it that makes me the doer of it. Well, that means the doing of it has to be there first to make me that. Right? All this in the first 2 verses. He's pointing out the absurdity of us saying, there's a me. And then I make things happen because I do things. Arya Nagarjuna, don't be absurd and say that I don't function. Did Nagarjuna say we didn't function? No. Right.
But isn't Nagarjuna what he's really trying to do is trying to transform our minds in thinking differently, how really things do
Right.
appear, how we perceive them, and how we interact between them. It's
Right.
like he's playing with us as we're the 3 spheres at all time with subject-object interaction. So I'm
Right.
listening to you with the example that you're providing, and I have the cup right next to me, and I said, well, I have a cup that this could be the car, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the key, it would be just me sipping
Right.
something inside the liquid.
Right.
So it's the same act. We're always doing actions. We're always performing something
Exactly.
absolutely all the time. So
Absolutely.
just
Correct.
by listening and looking at the computer, it's the way that we interact with that thing that it's the one that's creating our world.
Right. Right. And he wants us to recognize the finer and finer details of our resistance to the wisdom. Right? We
Right.
know the punchline. And then there are ways that we resist living according to the punchline. And he's wanting us not just to push that all to a side and say, I believe in the punchline. I'm going to try harder and harder to live by it. He wants us to identify these blockers to just being the punchline. So that's why he's going through all these different details. And it's like, come on, this seems all ridiculous because we already know. But if you're anything like me, yes, I know, but I'm blaming David for the mess in the kitchen as I'm cleaning it up. And I'm watching my own mind going, shut up in there. And then I turn in the next, goo on the counter. It's like, why is he so sloppy? Just shut up in there. Seeds are full of misbeliefs, and they're going to come up no matter how smart we are from studying Nagarjuna. And all these little fine details help to weed away that dust in those seeds. And why not do it now so there's less dust to work with, right? When we get to Bodhisattva Bhumi number 8, and all we have left to work with is dust. Yeah. So, yes, each one of his chapters is just going deeper.
So
And
they
it doesn't seem like all semantics, right? Of course, I'm not the doer of the deed until I'm doing the deed. Come on, Nagarjuna, a big deal. But what is the big deal?
so here, for example, what I'm trying to understand is he's trying to transform our consciousness, right, dear Lama?
Mhm. Help us
He's trying
transform.
to lead us to wisdom.
Mhm.
And in this chapter specifically, I imagine that he's trying to make us aware of our behavior, our tendencies to continue making the same habits, I mean, repeating habits and changing those patterns into wisdom, not to react immediately, but just kind of pause and think it over and decide your reaction, but with wisdom, not just as an impulse.
Right. Hopefully that will be the outcome. Technically, this chapter 8 is when he has turned us to look at what we believe is the me. So we've been working, we have the me and my parts. And up until now, the chapters have been looking at all those things that are included in the my parts. There's still more to come. But according to the commentators, this chapter is wanting us to look at what we mean by me. We define ourselves by what we're doing. And it's like, no, I don't. Apparently, yes, I do. So we're
Is that
looking at the me.
is that the duality that Janet was talking about?
Right, subject, object, interaction between is the
Okay.
duality, subject, object.
Okay, it's the seven consciousness then.
So we're looking at the subject side now
Okay, thank you.
by way of identifying ourselves by way of what we're doing. But we don't do that. I'm me, regardless of what I'm doing. Isn't that what we think? Like when we did this before, I remember coming to this conclusion. It's like, now I'm dish doer, and now I'm walker to the toilet. Now I'm going to the bathroom, or now I'm brushing my teeth, or now and there's not a me doing all that stuff. There's just the constantly shape-shifting doer. Well, no, it's not that. It's the constantly shape-shifting doing. Well, to have a ing happening, you have to have a right? The language fails. So he's helping us look at this impossibility of being a me as a separate independent thing that then chooses to do something, and that the impossibility of going from a non-doer to a doer without independent of the doing, right? And so language, we go, oh, that's impossible. You can't be a doer without a doing, but the doing can't happen without the doer. So which comes first? Where does it happen? What makes it happen? When does it happen? For the doer to go from a non-doer to a doer, the doing has to happen. To go from an agent, to go from not an agent of an action to an agent of an action, the action has to happen. Yes, Janet.
All right. So you're sleeping and you're not doing anything. And then, like with the alchemy people, they often say, you don't have to do anything. And I always thought that was about giving and receiving. But technically, if you want to see change and control your situation, you need to have positive seeds to
Yeah.
receive a teaching
Right,
in order to learn how you can change your situation.
right,
But we're not technically doing anything. We're not taking this class.
correct,
We just have positive seeds.
right. To be in a class taking a class. So you're right. So 8.1, one who is really a doer could never do that which is really a deed. The really is the important part here. And one who is really a non-doer, if I'm really not a car starter, every moment I'm not starting the car, if that quality is independently in me, then nothing could ever influence me in such a way that would make me a not car starter ever start a car. One who is really a non-doer could never do that which is not a deed. If the car starting happens independently of a doer of it, that's just absurd. Doesn't happen in our world like that. Although if we take this argument from us doing something towards an inanimate object and making that inanimate object change, and we take that towards another person, another animate thing, maybe this second verse would get a little slipperier, because I don't know, I can't come up with a good example. It just popped into my head. It's like, wait a minute. The car can't start itself, but a person I'm talking to can start an argument. And I believe that that would have come from them, not me. But of course, I'd be wrong, right? Yes, Janet. Wait, you're still muted.
I have a person like at the beginning of the meditation I want to help, and I went to retreat and I wanted to help her. And then I've been doing these divine feminine clearings, to pave the way to try to help her. And I realized the difference between me and her, because she has a lot of good karma, is the wish. I wish to for omniscience, I guess technically, I wish to really be able to help people in bigger ways. Because I work that trying to materially help people. Worked hard enough that I got burnt out over the pandemic. And she's burnt out now, but she doesn't have the wish. She wants a house in the suburbs and huts.
Yeah.
And I guess there's nothing wrong with wanting
Right.
material things.
Yeah.
But I realized that I could help her manifest that house and the hot sex. It's not really what I want, but there must be a part of me that wants it, because I'm seeing this, because I want the wish, but not everyone has the wish. A lot of people want to find their man. Where's my man?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
don't know what to think, because I thought we were beyond this, but I'm still seeing it.
I know, that is so frustrating, isn't it? Uh-huh. So, but you bring up such a great question. It's like when we are wanting to help people, what do we really want? What do we want? We want the highest for them. We want their suffering to end. And they want the house in the suburbs and the hot sex. So what do we wish for them when we're doing our Tonglen for them? Do we wish their worldly goals? Or do we negate their worldly goals and we envision them, a great spiritual practitioner high in the mountains in a hermitage? It's like, well, how do we really? To, when I used to be when I was in retreats, and you've got all this time while you're saying your mantra that you can do all these fantasies. And so like I would take one person at a time and I would pretend, that I was omniscient. And I would, while I was saying my mantra, this story is going off in my head about interacting with them in such a way, like, what would it be like to be the one that could guide them to their own waking up, right? So you would first bring them everything that they wanted in the world, every worldly thing that they wanted. And then you would wait for them to go, oh, but I'm still not happy. And then you'd be there to say, yeah, let me explain to you why not, right? Because happiness doesn't come from those things, blah, 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 right? You teach them the ACI and you teach them how to think, like all in your own imagination. And then they go, oh, I see. Oh my gosh, I have this great opportunity, but I'm going to die. Like you take them right through the whole Lam Rim. So like, if that's what we're doing in our prayers for people, like, can you do it in one sitting? No, you can't. Is it wrong to wish for them all the worldly happinesses? Is that perpetuating their suffering? Yeah, yes and no, right? Do we leave it there? Maybe in our prayers we say, may you have the house and the great sex, and may it lead you to your total awakening so you can become a being who helps everybody. Yeah, because anything could be the thing that wakes them up. And then do they necessarily have to give up the house and the hot sex to get on their spiritual path? Technically, no.
But
Practically, probably.
but with Mahamudra, you were saying how you can use your pleasures to help people, but that doesn't work unless you have the wish first. Without the wish, it doesn't happen.
Right. Which is why in the preliminaries, you grow the wish and begging for the wish from your lama until tears are pouring down your eyes. You have to have the wish first, or we go astray, right? You're absolutely right.
Oh no, you use up your good karma for these things, and then
Yeah,
they eventually end,
right.
and then back in the cycle again.
Exactly. Exactly. Such a slippery path, this one.
Yeah. I
So
guess
I can't.
teaching them about bodhicitta, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, making everything with bodhicitta.
exactly.
You can have the house, you can have the car, you can have a new computer all the time, but I mean, but
Right.
bodhicitta in your mind, I mean, really reaching for that enlightened mind.
Exactly. Exactly.
The way of the king is the way to go. I mean, if you don't really have any proof and showing, they won't believe you.
Right.
So, I mean, the way of the king is like my Tai Chi brother, who's not very nice, but a pretty high practitioner. But he pretty much has spent all his time practicing. And then there's other people in my life too who've gone that way. Um, they always seem to have enough money, and they always seem to be able to find the teachings they need. But I mean, it comes from doing good deeds, because they do good deeds. And the person I'm thinking of is a kind person, unlike my Tai Chi brother. And maybe it's kindness is all relative, relative to how Asians treated their children in the old day, the old love. He is kind relative to that.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know at this point. I know that if I work on myself and I can be like him, my level can be higher. and my foundation could be strong, it'll be different. And in this case, it's not the foundation in my body, though I guess it's in some ways it is. It's the foundations in the teachings.
Yeah.
So if I'm able to cross-reference and I'm able to tell people where these things are coming from, I'm not just making them up, and clarify why I interpret something as true in a certain way, I'll come from a stronger place.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near that. I mean, there's a lot of texts out there. There's a lot of cross-referencing. And I see some of it because you pointed it out to me, because I'm doing Lojong now with ACI 14, and then you brought it into this text. You know, if you're higher, lower, or equal, there's different ways of treating people, of touching people. And that's coming from the eight teachings from the golden lion, from his teaching, that you're not higher than. And then you know, they're arguing when someone leaves a monastery. No, you take over. No, you take over. No, you take over. There's 3 candidates and they all want to take over because nobody wants to be higher than, because they're following the
Right.
teaching, you know.
Right.
And so it applies to this in the way you touch people. But I wouldn't have gotten that cross-reference unless you pointed it out to me.
So
And it's
you,
all over.
right.
It's all over the text. It's all over. It's just that people don't see it. They see what the Buddha says, but they don't see the cross-referencing between the texts.
Right. Because you have to have all the text in order to see it, right? It's like the more we know, the more we can see in the things that we studied earlier. I so love going back
It certainly
and doing those ACIs again
it
and
certainly
again.
it certainly clarifies what's going on. If you have the wisdom text and you don't understand it, it clarifies when someone refers to a wisdom text and you're like, oh, they're referring to Arya Nagarjuna,
Right.
and they're talking about the touching, you know,
Yeah.
then it makes sense. But it's
Right.
not necessarily laid out that way. And maybe it's not laid out that way. It's just my seeds interpreting it that way. So then it starts
Exactly.
a little confused about what's really going on.
Really. There's that word really again. So when Janet started out, she was saying omniscience. I really need that omniscience. And then haven't we learned that what's the difference between a practitioner? What is a practitioner whose goal was nirvana, who reaches nirvana, and then has the ripening of, you know, hearing the voice saying there's more to do? What is it that they need to go back and do? Do you remember? What didn't they do in their path of habituation that
They
meant
just,
that their goal to reach was nirvana instead of omniscience? What's the difference?
well, they wanted it to do it for them, but not to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all the beings, right?
Right, right. So what were they lacking?
The bodhicitta, they were lacking that part.
Compassion. They weren't
Compassion.
lacking the
Loving
bodhicitta, that's the wisdom. They had the wisdom, but they didn't have the for the benefit of all beings. They didn't have the compassion. The compassion is everybody's suffering in the same way as me, or maybe more. So everything I'm going to do is, I know what to do by way of my own suffering. And then what I do to relieve my own suffering, I do to benefit anybody with that same suffering, which is everybody. So compassion and love go together. Compassion and love, even if you knew nothing about morality, if you went from somebody with no love and compassion to somebody with, you know, major love and compassion, do you think that would change your behavior from being selfish to less selfish, more kind? So we could make the case that as our compassion grows, our morality would grow, even without all the guidelines of what morality to grow. Because our compassion would be, I don't want to do anything that contributes to anybody's suffering. So I'm going to be more nice. So as Janet says, like the dot is getting connected, and we see the importance of compassion. Yes. Yes, Janet.
So, although that is true, because I'm 12 step, you also might want to think twice about enabling people's bad behaviors. And that's
Absolutely.
why I try to stop it right away. And it seems kind of harsh that I try to stop it right away.
Yeah.
But if are you being nice to your person that's an addict by giving them money so they can buy more drugs? I guess it
Right.
makes them happy. It might create financial difficulties in your household.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to judge people and say drugs are bad or drinking's bad. I'm not.
Yeah.
I just don't want a lot of drama around me, and I can see it will lead to that if there is this, well, I'm not all about the money, but I would like to be a giving person, and I'm going to give all my money to my drug dealer. So, that's fine,
Yeah.
but I'm the landlord. You got to give me the money too, and I really have
Right.
to hold that. I can't let that person
Absolutely.
just be in their habit so because they're happy, and then I can't pay my bills. I just can't. I can't do that.
You're absolutely right. And the Bodhisattva way of life is not saying give them everything worldly that they want to be happy in the moment, because that is contributing to their mistake. Taking the drugs does not bring the relief that they think that it brings. So us contributing to them getting their drugs is not what it is to be compassionate. But it does, at first blush of the Bodhisattva training, sounds like worldly things, spiritual things, doesn't matter, give them everything they want. But it's not helping. Sometimes the best helping is that tough love that cuts them off. I'm sorry, right? I have
I'm
the resources. I could give you all the money you want for all the drugs you want, but I'm not going to do that. That's not in your highest interest. How can I help you in another way?
The wish changes everything.
It
The
does.
wish to help all people. And this kid that was my tenant, he had that wish. He said, I am not all about the money. He wanted to be a good person. But when it came right down to it, he gave his money to other people and not to me. And I
Yeah.
thought that was very interesting
Yeah.
because he
Right, right.
wasn't all about the money. If you're not all about the money, then at least give me some money for the rent. Don't give me nothing at all.
Right,
But he
right,
gave
right.
me nothing. And then I had to have his family come in, and that was it.
Yeah. Right, right, right. But it's compassionate to hold someone to an agreement that they've made. It's loving to hold somebody to an agreement that they made. To let them slide on those agreements means they'll do it to somebody else. And we know it's hurtful. Where is it coming from? I did it to somebody. Okay, fine. That's all the more reason to not contribute to somebody else doing it, either to you or to somebody else. It's not easy. This path is not, the choice making is not black and white ever. Always these gray areas. So thank goodness we have teachers that help us like look at all these different nuances to help us consider our behavior in higher and higher ways. Let's take our break and we'll come back. Need to stop share. Pause. So in answer to our Kachik, I am so a thing that produces other things, even after chapter 7. Nagarjuna says, let's check that out. The doer of the deeds, the me that does stuff. He says, let's go looking for that me that's there first, that then does something and is still the me, is still the me. Something becoming an agent does not imply that something becomes an action. One who is really a doer could never do that which is really a deed. Then again, neither can something which is not an agent, not a doer, perform something which is not an action. So if I'm not a key turning car starter, how do I become one? And if the car starting by way of turning the key is not happening, how does it start to happen? Don't I have to be the key turner car starter in order to start the car? But I don't become the key turner car starter until the car has started. Do I? So where's the me in all of that? The me, not a key turner car starter, pulls the key out of my purse, walks to the car, sticks the key in, starts to turn it, keeps turning it. Car starts, I stop turning it. But now wait, if turning it starts the car, how come letting go of it keeps the car started? Why doesn't the car unstart as soon as I stop turning the key? It's all like seems so ridiculous to even talk about. Once the car started, it stays started. We talked about that in chapter 7. What we want to know is when do I, the not car starter, become the car starter without having already been the car starter or having something influencing the me that wasn't a car starter to make me be a car starter? Which of those two are happening? Am I always the car starter? Or does something affect me to make me the car starter? In which case, that thing that affects me to make me the car starter has to already be there, has to already be happening, right? For it to work the way we think it works, I'm me, I get my keys, I go and I start my car. In order for that to really work, says Nagarjuna, it has to either be that I'm already the car starter, in which case the car's already going, so I don't need to do anything. Or there's something about the car starting that makes me the car starter, which means it has to already have happened before I can do it. Like, to him, it's so obvious. And he's going to go through all these verses in chapter 8 to try to help us get on board with that. But is the conundrum clear? At what point do I go from a not doer of a deed to a doer of the deed? What does that depend upon? We know the punchline, my seed's ripening. If we didn't know the punchline and we were having this conversation, right, with the neighbor, and they were willing to play along, What happens to your you in this moment that turns the key and starts the car? Are you the same you? Oh, so you're a different you.
Let's see, Lemma. I can't be the same, right? It's different timings, different seeds ripening, different moments in time, everything. I mean, I understand the ripening. For example, right now I stood up during the break and I decided to go make my bed. Okay, I had the option. I could have gone downstairs and make some coffee. Instead, I've decided to perform another action.
Right.
Okay, so I was thinking while making the bed, what can I do to stop making the bed every single day? And then I go, okay, do you really want to stop making your bed every single day? Or would you rather think that you're making a nice space for somebody at night to come and enjoy a nice, relaxed night,
Right.
a nice space? So I had an option. I decided to make the bed. I always make my bed, but
Right.
it's every single day making the same repetition
Yeah.
without conscious. Until this morning that I decided, okay, do you want to continue making the bed? Why do you want to continue making the bed? Is there a purpose on it? So it's the same about turning the key. There's a purpose driving somewhere for something,
Yeah.
right?
So my question was, are you different? Is the you before you decided to make the bed different than the you now who has made the bed?
Yes, it's
Are you
different.
different? So why do we still call you Roxana?
Karmically, I'm different. How you see me, it's your ripening. I mean, you're continue seeing me as Roxana, right?
Yeah, so every time I see you, you're different. It seems just as logical that every time I see you, I would have a different name for you. That would be confusing.
Very confusing.
So then, if we're different with every action that we do, at what point does the difference happen? Does it wait until you're done making the bed to make you now Roxana who made her bed? Or were you different as you were making the bed? Yeah,
Mm.
like logically, in every instant, I'm different. Aren't I?
Logically. But how do you explain some that to one of Janet's friends that she's trying to correlate something?
Right, right. I don't know. If Janet's friends is one of the ones that's, using their marijuana regularly, they may like, wow, man, that's really cool. I get it. I'm different moment by moment. They might get it better than me, stuck in my logical, rational mind. Mm,
I mean, the wish is there. The wish has to be there, and not just to party down, but the wish has to be beyond
yeah,
your desire to surround yourself with your um lifestyle, I guess you could say. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
But logically, I mean, you play it on your mind and you try to get a conclusion. You have to I mean, at least I try to reflect on what I do, how I
mhm,
do it, what I think, because
why?
I think it's so important for me to try to clear obstacles and reach a certain goal.
Yeah,
I mean, we're all headed towards enlightenment. When?
right.
Well, that's the question. When? but we're there. I mean, we're on the path. So if you're on the path, what you want is to have less obstacles. And the people around you have less obstacles as well, and have them happy because you want happy people around you. You want to make them happy. You want to make your best. You want to be happy. You want to give your kindness to everybody who's around you.
Right.
But here with Nagarjuna, for example, I think that for me, he's trying to say, okay, if you're going to do something, what's the purpose of it? Find a meaningful purpose. If you're going to be the doer, if you're going to be the agent, what are you going to do? Like making the bed. I every single morning do my bed.
Yeah.
It's like a religion. It's like I was taught that way.
Yeah. Joanna had something to share. Did you?
Was on the thought before, like when you talk to someone and then this changing, how do you explain that you're never the same? On a higher level, everybody agrees that we are changing because we have been small and like half a meter high, and now we're
Right.
double size or even more. And it's like we have been changing so much already. And also how I felt yesterday, I felt good, and today I feel bad. So there is some part somehow on a certain
Yeah.
level, everybody would agree that we change. And even 5 minutes before I felt different than now.
Yeah.
Now I'm cold, 5 minutes before I was warm. So kind of thing, that would be a good entry point, I think,
Yeah.
to start into a conversation about we never are the same. Even though we can't go with them on the level that we are discussing here, that there's not even the me,
Yeah.
like the Jana, Roxana, Janet. But I thought this is a good starter for them to be more aware that there's things happening, and at least how I feel changes a lot.
Yeah.
And there has been better moments already. So there's a possibility that I have an influence on it to make it better again.
Yeah. Nice.
So, yeah.
So what does all of that do to your sense of your me? Is it scary to think, well, if I'm changing like that, the me I thought was there, that was the me that things were happening to, suddenly is like, where's that one? Is it scary? Or is it like, wow, I get it?
I mean,
Yeah,
the wish to help people has to overcome all of it.
It does.
Yeah, you can be there, but and then the lojong is you use your problems as your solution.
Right.
If there is any problems, you're nice to that problem so that you can get more seeds, so that you can continue on your path to helping people.
Yeah.
And it's all about being good to have the seeds to use for the wish for the bigger enlightenment. But I mean, unless you have the wish, it just it's I don't know. I don't know if it's really the same because you just burn out. You just burn
Right.
out all your activity. And it's just too
Right.
much explaining to people, really.
It
Just too much.
is. They don't want to sit still. No. Geshe always teases. Well, I always tease when somebody finally says, well, you seem to know something, could you share with me? It's like, yeah, sure, you got 20 years. I'll give you the short version in 15 minutes, but technically takes 20 years.
It is
Not that
definitely
there's
nice.
anything about 20 years, but meaning it takes a long time, right?
So
Yes.
your you is being trained to gather seeds for the big enlightenment.
Yes.
But really, um, if you're using those seeds for other means, which I do,
We all do.
we all do, then if you use it all up, then you're back to earning more so you can get more stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know what to say. I mean, I must be seeing this in people because it's within myself. that I want to do the ordinary things and have ordinary pleasures. And that wish isn't
God.
very strong.
Right. And
But the wish is there, it's just not as strong as it could be.
right. Right. That's wise to fall back on the wish.
And who's the I who has the wish? I mean, like
Exactly.
last week you asked us to explore the me. What's the me? Who's the me? What? So, and I was thinking on different occasions. Okay, so what's happening here? And in the end, I can always come back to your mudra. It's this kind of thing. Okay, this makes somehow sense, even though I can't really grasp what's behind. But it's like there's a part of a wish ripening, the same as the part of the ignorance ripening, the same as this kind of identity that I feel, the same that my body. It's all inside this moment by moment experience. But if I wouldn't have had this punchline that I at least can fall back to, not understanding it really deeply, but kind of, that's the way to go. So to me, it's
Yeah.
like I think we once had a discussion with the coloring of the seed. So the more and more we study and listen and hear about emptiness, the less strong is the ignorance that we replant. So the bigger the color or the part maybe of the wish and the understanding, even though light and darkness, we know that it's not touching.
Right.
So there falls everything apart again, but still there's, in my imagination, at least this step in between, that there's this, like the water, and you drop color inside. The more color you put, the more colored it gets. So
Yeah. Nice.
this kind of picture I have, and there's some kind of color that comes identity Joanna at the moment. So
Right.
maybe tomorrow it's the dog. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, please not.
Yeah, that like Lama, I was thinking that, you know, that the me before and the me after, how am I different is in the way I react and respond to certain situations. That's what changed me from this moment to that. And I'm thinking, as we mentioned earlier, it's the intention of our actions. But our reactions is also very important. Like when we are faced with a certain situation, what do you do? Like nowadays, what I do, and I think I've been doing this for the past about 2 months since I'm back in KL. Because parking is a situation that is sometimes hopeless here to find a parking space. So sometimes when me and my husband we go out for our brunch or breakfast or things like that, then he say, let's see if we have parking lot luck today, whether we can find parking space. And in my mind I went, oh no, I'm not looking at luck. So what I started doing was I started rejoicing everyone who could find legal parking. I don't want just any parking space. I want a legal parking so that I don't cause congestion.
Yeah.
So I rejoice everyone who has legal parking, and I dedicate this seat that they have to everyone looking for a legal parking space, including myself. And I'll be going one round, and very patiently, my husband says, no parking lot today. I say, it's okay. I'm working on it. And it seems that every time when I mindfully do it, if I don't find it the first round, the second round, hey, somebody seems to be leaving their space. And I just go in and, I'm so grateful I don't cause congestion on the road, you know.
Yay.
So it has been quite successful
Mhm.
in finding legal parking spaces.
Good, good. Nice.
So I'm also teaching him nowadays. I said, hey, start rejoicing. Start being happy for everybody who gets legal parking. Let's put in double effort.
Yay, good.
And I'm trying to do it for everything. Everything that, like, every obstacle that I face, and then I somehow see somebody having a solution to that. I rejoice. Hey, I
Yes.
rejoice you having this solution to this problem that I too have. So may I have this solution as well, and to everybody
Perfect.
else who's looking for solutions.
Perfect. Nice, thank you. Are we ready to go to 8.2? We're just doing review.
We need to be, we gave rights to people. That's why it's not the key. It's the past action. We don't remember that we gave rights to people. And that's why the
Right.
car starts.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't know where we left off, so I'll come back up to the top of my screen. It's you, Janet. Give us 8.2A and B, please.
There is no act with someone who is that would become an action that had no agent. There's no act where something is, where there is no action, they would become an agent again.
All right, that's clear. Let's add Lama Christie's. 8.2. For that which really is, the doing can't exist. Or else you would have a deed without a doer. For that which really is, the doing can't exist. Or else you would have a doer without a deed. So where something is, or that which really is, means if something were itself in itself, right? An independent thing. If the person is an independent thing who's not acting, and then the action happens, there would be an action that has no agent, because we already said the person is the non-doer of the deed is the non-doer. So if somehow the deed gets done, it can't have been done by the non-doer because they are a non-doer. If I am a not starter of the car right now, then if the car does start, it can't be me doing it because I'm not a car starter in me from me. I know, it's like, that's ridiculous. I am not a car starter, but when I go out to start the car, I will become the car starter. Right, says Nagarjuna. At what point do you become the car starter? Not till the car starts. Yeah, but the car can't start without me starting it, well, then I had to change. I had to not be the car starter to become the car starter. Right. But then at what point does that happen? Well, I don't have to change. I just have to stick the key in the car and turn it. Well, then somehow you're saying that key could get in the ignition and turn without you. Or you don't change by turning the key. Or like, does the action happen with no agent? Or do you have a doer, a car starter, without the car starting? Okay, part of my identity since the first time I started a car, however old I was, ever since that happened in this life, I have been a car starter. Would we agree with that? What if I started a car one time, when I was 12 years old, and I never did it again? Ever in that whole life? Would I still be a car starter when I'm 95? And if I never started the car again? No, I'm only a car starter when I'm starting the car.
I think we become the car starter when we set the intention to become the car starter.
Okay, so I intend to start the car.
Yeah.
I'm now a car starter. And it doesn't matter if I ever stick the key in the car or not. I'm still a car starter because of my intention.
Yeah, but I would have to have the tools to start the car.
Okay, so it's not the intention, it's the tools.
No, it's the intention with the tools.
It's the intention with the tool.
Yes.
Okay, so I can have the intention and I can have the tool and I can be turning it.
Yeah, and it would help me. It would indirectly make me the car starter when the car starts.
Yeah, it would.
Hmm.
Every time my key starts my car, Elsie is the cause.
It's only when I start my car.
Oh, just your car.
Yeah.
Yes, Janet.
They talked about this a little bit in Mixed Nuts. And I
Yes.
kind of thought about meditation too, about having the object, the focus, and intensity. And they said that the Abhidharma was 90% of it. A big part of our path and our learning is what we call the ordinary bodhicitta. And then as you hold your focus, that's kind of like the middle way, and the intensity might be the wisdom. I don't know. But they're saying not to criticize those other schools because they're what brought us here.
Right.
That's what that beginning part is what brought us here. But then you let it go, but you don't let it go because it was inferior. That's not it at all. You let it go because you're trying to learn the next thing.
Right. You
And
build
then
on
you're
it.
saying, yeah, you're saying how you have that kind of path with those 9 stages of meditation, and you don't just stay on the focus, the clarity and intensity. You're going to the other paths too. But unless we have those earlier ones, you felt uncomfortable having us teaching us the other stuff. You felt like we needed to have the basic foundation, including how you sit and being able to sit comfortably without like being in pain, or maybe sitting in a regular chair. Some people at our retreat, they sat in a regular chair, they didn't sit on the floor. And then to take in considerations like how you feel after lunch and before lunch for the quality of your meditation.
Right.
But yeah, if you read the Entering the Middle Way, or I guess the other commentaries, it's about these different schools and how, you know, they don't really, they're not really open. They've been good students. Why would you need to teach them something different? I've never heard this taught before. This wisdom stuff, that's what I hear at Deer Park, because they did the Lam Rim for a long time. And then they're like, oh, that Nagarjuna, that's something new. That's something really, I've never heard Geshe Zopa teach like that before. And not the nuns, but the students there, the nuns and the monks know. And then evidently back in the day, Nagarjuna encountered the same thing with his community. So
Yes.
we're not able to learn new things, really. We can be open to them and then try to learn, and with review, we might start learning it and cross-referencing it. So maybe it's that people didn't know how to learn and they're being taught how to learn, and that they don't know anything, right? They don't want to admit they know everything. Those good Abhidharma's practitioners knew it all. They didn't want to learn anymore.
Maybe.
So I don't know. So this thing with the self, and who is the self is part of these things that we went through, but they're also not part of the things that we went through, because we don't know it all, and
Yeah.
we know it, and we don't know how to learn the things we want to, even though we want to learn them. And we're burnt out trying to help people with our bodhicitta, so we're motivated, but it still doesn't really happen. So there's obstacles within us. I don't know if it's all, is it all just our bad seeds, or is there just some kind of setup, you know, with this corruption and undoing the corruption, and then 20 years it takes to like try to settle in and be able to talk about it? Because Nagarjuna says talking about it is the problem too, because we put names on stuff. So we perpetuate the problem by just talking about it, because we give more
Yes.
names to stuff.
Yes.
And then we want to cry. We cry and cry.
Right.
And then we laugh because we're crying.
Yes, Roxana.
Thank you. Well, thank you for letting me share. You know, I'm trying to reason with myself, okay, of the questions that you're asking, dear Lama. And it comes to my mind that who am I? I'm just full potential. I'm just
Right.
Buddha nature.
Right.
And what I'm just trying to do is to transform my consciousness. That's what
Mhm.
I'm trying to do. I'm trying to learn how to do it. I'm trying to gain the wisdom. Hopefully, I'll turn them into Dharmakaya, Nirvanakaya, Samboyakaya, you know, hopefully. But meanwhile, up to the level that I am right now, I'm just full potential, trying to absorb, to interact with what I have in my surroundings and make the best of it. So I could be the car starter, I could be the making bed, the drinking coffee. I mean, the ing, but while
Right.
I'm the ing
Right. The
performing
ing, ing,
those
ing.
things,
Yes.
I have to be aware of those imprints that are still being planted.
Right.
So it's, I love our conversations. I learn a lot from each one of you, but I guess each one processes so differently,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And but I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
You know, I am, again, I remember we came to the conclusion, I think it was this chapter 8, of trying to relate to ourselves like a verb instead of a noun. No, this being, constantly shifting, never the same 2 moments in a row, but never not, right? Never not subject-object interaction between. We are ignorantly, we are identifying with the subject, independent of object and interaction between. And all of this mental exploration is trying to crack that nut, that here's me, the subject side, here's object interaction between going on all outside of me. And allow ourselves to identify as the whole process, not meaning give up the subject side, because there will always be a subject side ripening, because there's always a subject side planting. Even Buddha's plant subject object interaction between. But if I understand, and I'm not sure I do, their identity, their sense of identity is all of it. Which, if our sense of identity fills our subject side, then when our sense of identity is all of it, our consciousness will fill all of it. And maybe that's a clue to omniscience. Yes, Joanna.
While exploring this me during the last week, I had one situation where I came across this thought that everybody else is my protection, so it's my seeds ripening too. So the happening includes everything in my world. And then I thought, like, well, if I am with my identity in part of the seed, and all the others too, then this gave me this kind of sense of we are all one on a certain level. Like,
Yeah.
they are aspects of me, showing me in the outside what my topic is, kind of thing. But it's related to me anyway, so it's my learning. And as Roxana said, we are processing things very individually because we are projecting completely different. So even
Right.
when Janet said that the schools, we are not to judge them, it's coming from me to see people who are either not learning at all, declining everything, and also the people who go to other teachings that I don't relate to, and then it's also me, an aspect of me projecting outside. So it's always a good idea not to judge. The self-judging somehow kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it somehow opened my heart a little more, in the sense that when the teachings say everybody has been your mother, or all these different ways to give us a path to getting more compassionate with others, it suddenly made much more connection. I felt more connection to everybody around as well. Seeing them as an aspect of me, a part of me, and trying to include them. I don't know if it does make sense at all to any of you, but it was this kind of, they are a part of me, and I see it, and it has to do with me. And I suddenly could relate more to this idea also that they have been my mother. I mean, like they are always with me and in different forms. So wherever I come back, wherever I am now, it's always my possibility to learn and evolve, as Roxana says, to get more into potential. But personally, it was really more heart opening for this moment.
Nice.
I don't know if it makes sense to think like that.
Right. So as I hear you describing that, I'm hearing the teachings on exchanging self and others, right? As your sense of, we know how things reflect me, exchanging self and others, right? At one level you start, how are they experiencing me? But as those seeds grow, it's actually your sense of inclusion, right? Which starts like including them, but it goes to your identity including them.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's this one fork, the same mouth. It really felt like that.
Nice. Yay.
Thank you.
Lama, like for example, right now, the sharing between us, it's also my ripening, Joanna's ripening, your ripening. Right?
Correct.
So imagine how wonderful. It's like the melting pot, everything together.
Yes.
So beautiful.
Everybody contributing.
Everybody contributing, yes.
It also felt really bad to think like, okay, who's me, me, and then I detected or I recognized that I was like for 5 minutes asking me, and I was like, how selfish. Only me. It
Yeah,
really was weird.
yeah. We still have a little time. Let's go on. Pauline, will you read for us 8.3, please?
Sure, teacher. If something that was an agent could perform something that was not an action, the action would have no cause. Neither would there be any cause for the agent.
Okay, so first verses, he said in response to, I do things. He goes, okay. Are you the doer of the deed before the deed happens? If you are, you don't need to do the deed. If the deed has to happen before you become the doer of the deed, well, you still don't need to do the deed because it's already happening. And we go, what? And he said at 8.2, well, check it out, right? And then he's saying, check it out further. If I'm the turner of the key, starter of the car, without starting the car, if an agent that could perform something that doesn't happen, if I'm still the turner of the key, starter the car when I turn the key and the car doesn't start, then there's a actor with no action. Or if the car starts independent of me turning the key, there's an action that has no cause. Like if there's no connection between me sticking the key and turning the car to start the car, then you have the car starting with no cause. I kind of think this is Kachik talking back. The commentaries say, no, Nagarjuna is helping us look more deeply. But if my mind heard him say, look, there's no connection between a doer of the deed and the deed, then we would say, well, then, there's no connection between sticking the key in the car and starting the car and the car starting and the me doing it. There's no connection there. That means there would be no cause for the result car starting. But Nagarjuna is using that same argument to actually say, right, there's something else going on. So this one I find slippery. Lama Christie says, but if he was not a doer and he did that which wasn't a deed, there'd be no cause for the deed. So if I'm not a car starter and there's no starting a car, then there's no result. That means there's no cause. So then why are we even talking about it?
Teacher, but to me, this one sounds like Nagarjuna because it says that it's like strongly pointing out that if things have self nature in the thing, the agent, then it won't change from not being a car starter to a car starter. And if the thing is already started, like the car is already started, then you don't need to start it. So it also sounds like Nagarjuna pointing out it's not Kachik to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's great. Like you can read these words and see Kachik, and you can see these words and see Nagarjuna. It's so cool. And I think he'd be going, yay, they're getting it. because there's nothing in his words that has any wisdom at all,
Mm.
right? So fun. Thanks for playing. Let's do one more. At least hear them. 8.4 to 6. I'm going to lose the page if I go one more click. Elsie, would you give for us?
Thank you, Lama. If they have no causes, then the result and the cause would be incorrect too. If they were absent, it would be incorrect to say there were an act or an agent or that they created. If the act and such are incorrect, then neither can the way or its opposite side or its opposite exist.
Uh-oh.
If neither of these, the way or its opposite, existed, then neither could the results which came from them. And if these results did not exist, then neither could the path to freedom and the higher birth be correct. Wow, that's a long one.
What's he saying? Is it him or is it Kachik? We can read it both ways.
The causes no result. If there's no causes, then the results that existed would not happen or would be incorrect.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I've been doing good. I've been helping somebody. But the more I help, the more I suffer personally.
Mhm.
So there seems to be no connection between my action and the result I'm getting.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, we know that this is due to the time gap.
Right.
Right? But if you were to explain to somebody, maybe a layman, then they tell, why should I do good? Because every time I do something, something bad happens to me.
Right.
So, but if we look at it, yeah, because those two actions are would be unrelated or would be we won't be able to find the connection between why I'm doing something, planting a white seed and then the black seed ripen.
Right.
There is no connection there.
Right. If the key doesn't start the car, then any cause and any apparent result, they have no relationship. If I'm not a doer of a deed, and if there's no relationship between me, the non-doer, or the doer and the deed, whether it gets done or not, if there's no relationship there at all, then you're saying there's no cause and effect relationship. And if that's true, then
There'll be chaos in the world.
yeah, right. Then it's like, well, then the way can't work, and neither can samsara. Right? Cause and effect runs the show. And yet cause and effect can't happen. cause and effect is impossible.
It doesn't happen at the next moment.
But it
Right.
does happen.
It does happen, but not at the next moment.
I know, but when we say, but it does happen, there's still something we're misunderstanding.
We still think that something we do is kept in a shelf and that
Exactly.
will be
There's
projected
this-
later on.
Right. There's this foundation consciousness where it's all happening. Oh, okay. Right? Yes, Joanna.
For me, it sounds like my inner Kachika. Like there's the two extremes. Either it's working the way I think it does, or it doesn't work at all.
Right,
That's,
right,
yeah.
right.
If I'm not
So-
there and not the doer, then what does it matter anyway? I mean, like, this
Exactly.
is the essential question. So,
Right. Like if there's nothing I really do that makes what seems to happen, then like, well, then there's no path to enlightenment and there couldn't be samsara either. And so who cares? But what if we go back and read this as Nagarjuna? Would Nagarjuna be saying there's no way, there's no path, and there's no samsara?
yeah, because he would say it's not from its own side. There's nothing you have to do, like the IKEA to-do list. Take this,
Right.
then that, then this. It's not a path existing out there on its own.
Right.
You could say that too.
Let's cook that for the week. That'll be our task. Is like look back through this series of verses and look at it from Kachik, saying, well, if it's true what you say, Arya Nagarjuna, then there can't be a path to enlightenment and there can't even be samsara. And see where your mind goes, where your Kachik mind goes with that. And then look at it again and say, well, here's Nagarjuna saying, look, if we're thinking we understand karma and emptiness, and we're thinking, oh, so the path of bodhicitta to enlightenment has some nature of its own. There's no such that way either.
Sometimes I hear people say there is no path, there's just path language, so we can talk about it.
That's right.
It's already been determined in some ways there is no path, but we talk, it's back to the Diamond Cutter Sutra that
Right.
if things exist in word only, what we
Exactly.
call the path is
Right.
it exists in name only.
Right. And when we hear you say that, does our mind go, oh, so there's really no path at all? Or do we go, oh,
No, because I've been warned about the two extremes,
yeah,
so I
good.
caution myself going there now.
Yeah. Good. All right, nice. Investigation investigators. You are really good at it. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help at the beginning? We understand things better than we did before. We have changed, and technically so have they. The them we know of. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So be happy with yourself, please. And think of this goodness as a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you? They are your highest ripening. Feel your gratitude to them, your devotion to them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, challenge you, help you, support you, inspire you, and then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there, their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom. And may it be so. Quickly, quickly, quickly.
Teacher, sorry.
Yes, Pauline.
Before we come back the next week, may I ask, for the last part, the last verse, right? In the Kachik point of view, does it mean we are looking at the apparent causes that have some self-nature?
Mhm.
And then in Nagarjuna's point of view is the ultimate cause where we don't normally connect.
Right. The ultimate cause being no
Yeah.
cause at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has no self-nature. Of course, every karma
Right.
has got cause and effect.
Right. Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you, teacher.
No, I think Kachik's point is, yeah, it's absurd what you're saying, Nagarjuna, because the logical conclusion would be there's no path and there's no samsara. And guess what? There's both. And from Nagarjuna's point of view, he's saying if you think there's a samsara and a path that have their own nature, guess what? There's none. Right? It's really, it's so amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, my dears.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you,
Stopping
Naveen.
recording.
good.
Stopping.
Thank you. Just please.
Thank you.